I, for one, I don't know about you, I'm very glad to see Christmas hoving into view with the possibility of a break for a few days from what has been a massively, extraordinarily busy year, and a year of momentous events both in this country and internationally. When you look back on the last 12 months, there is quite an incredible array of issues that arise worldwide, from the revolutionary movements of the Arab world, which exploded onto the scene, to only in the last few weeks, powerful movements of opposition, working people and young people in Russia, in opposition to the new Putin dictatorship, the Occupy movement, and of course we've had the extraordinary crisis in the euro and in the European Union, and the Herculean struggle of the Greek working class and movements by other sections of the working class in response to the savage austerity that is unleashed on the working class, particularly in the so-called peripheral countries, in response to the direct dictatorship of the financial markets. For the first time in the European Union as well, the dismissal of governments, albeit rotten governments, but elected governments if you like, and their placement by the direct representatives of bankers and big business in the form of the Italian and the Greek so-called technocratic governments, in reality representatives for the financial markets, the hedge fund operators, the speculators, before whose power that is ceded to them, the entire leadership of the European Union is capitulating. We've had, of course, in Ireland, the ongoing policy of austerity, seamlessly passed from Fianna Fáil and the Green Party to Fine Gael and Labour, and proving an equal disaster in the hands of this new government. All the economic indicators that should be pointing upwards, if there was to be a recovery, if there was any basis to the propaganda that Ireland is taking the right course of action, that the pats in the head that Merkel and Sarkozy have been given Enda Kenny of late when he has visited them, their words of praise meant anything. When we have the value-added tax receipts going down dramatically, the massive collapse in investment, the growth stagnating, and as been outlined, a huge increase in unemployment. And of course, what was added last week of another 3.8 billion from the pockets of working class people and ordinary people, and more over the next 2 or 3 budgets, if this government lasts that long, will of course only add to the downward spiral of crisis, as we have seen most dramatically in Greece. Austerity is a disastrous policy that destroys economies, that destroys society, destroys working class people's living standards, small enterprises, services, social cohesion. And of course, as Eddie mentioned, we are now faced with the new push from the leadership of the European Union at the behest of the markets that this austerity should be institutionalized in law and in constitutions. And tomorrow morning in the Dáil, for example, there will be a session and a report back from the summit of last week, and an opportunity to question the Taoiseach Enda Kenny. And the United Left Alliance TDs will be to the forefront in warning this government that they shouldn't dare to think that they can pass this through the Dáil without reference to the Irish people. That there must be a democratic check, there must be a referendum in relation to this, these policies, and I am confident that the left can play, and the United Left Alliance in particular, will play a major role in fighting not just the new policy, but in putting forward a left and a socialist alternative in response to it, which is really the only solution that we can now outline on a European basis to this disastrous policy of austerity. It's quite clear that the domination of our society by the markets, the speculators and the bankers, is disastrous for the majority in society. And therefore the idea that these massively powerful financial and other institutions should be prized from the hands of the speculators and the bondholders, put under democratic ownership and public accountability and democratic running, is an idea that appeals to increasingly large numbers of people and is increasingly the obvious idea that instead of these gamblers whose gambling has had such disastrous consequences, that the democratic ownership and control of these major institutions under the working class, under ordinary people, and then investment policy and everything else for the benefit of society, for the mass investment into public investment right across Europe, that is the way to go. And the other issue that is raised, of course, is the need for solidarity across the borders of Europe with the working class in Europe. If there was a leadership of the labour movement in any country that was worth its salt, already there would have been massive solidarity movements between the Greek working class, the Italian, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Irish, and others. The situation is begging for a European alternative along those lines, and we have to raise that as part of this debate. The household tax bill was introduced to the Dáil tonight. It will be rushed through tomorrow and possibly voted on with a guillotine tomorrow night, or at best on Thursday sometime during the day. This is a draconian piece of legislation, starting at €100 demand on our people as a direct tax to continue the policy of bailing out the bondholders. But the penalties that are put on householders to intimidate them into registering are quite disgusting and disgraceful. Every householder, according to this, becomes eligible on the 1st of January in a few weeks' time. They must have registered and paid at least the first moiety of €25 by March the 31st, or face a fine of up to €2,500, and then a fine, an ongoing fine, and fees, etc., following on from that. This is a disgusting attempt to intimidate and frighten people into registering for this tax, because it is, of course, the precursor to a property tax to raise up to €700 or €800 per household, and a water tax to follow, another €400 or €500 per household. That is why we in the United Left have to be in the very, very cockpit of the leadership of this battle, as indeed we are. But there is something different about this, and we've got to get this message out over the next 3 or 4 weeks. And that is, this is the best opportunity in 3 years that ordinary people have to take a massive stand against what is being done to us and to them over the last 3 years. Our people have been, as we know, bled for the speculators in the markets. Our people have been imposed with all kinds of penalties, cuts to the wages, a universal social charge, a tax on our services, etc., to bail out the financial institutions in Europe. Unfortunately, the leadership of the trade unions didn't give a lead, therefore people didn't find a mass expression within which they could resist. This is their opportunity. We have to get out to people, the length and breadth of this country. There are 1.6 million households that are due to pay this tax. Our call, the call of the campaign against household and water charges, of don't pay, don't register, that has to go out immediately as this bill is being passed. And then we have to say to people, stand firm on that, because we can build a powerful movement of people power in opposition to this tax, and we can defeat this tax. And I think all the United Left Alliance, the public reps, the branches, etc., have a key responsibility here. And let us remember as well, we have to be skillful and incisive in how we get to a fearful majority that is out there that is wondering, can this be fought? They may not have the confidence. There will be a hard cohort who will stand with us immediately and instinctively. But let us say to a broader, a mass of people who are perhaps fearful of the fines, etc., maybe there's no visible campaign yet in their area. Let's say to them, look, stand firm with the campaign. You do not have to register or pay in any case until the last day in March. Don't register or pay in January. Don't register or pay in February. Don't register or pay in week 1, 2 or 3 of March. And we can arrive at the last week in March with over 1 million households not registered, not paying. That would be a huge blow to this government, but it would be a major demonstration of national opposition and resistance. And then obviously the logical thing is no registration whatsoever, no payment whatsoever. We can build a powerful movement of people power in order to defeat this tax. That is a real challenge, and that is a real possibility. We have to give it everything to try to bring that into being. It would be the first major blow against the governments, against austerity, in a real way of people power being exercised back on them. Of course, that does go along with the idea of building an alternative. I don't agree with the idea that Sinn Féin, it is frustrating for ULA members and people on the left that Sinn Féin gets a lot of prominence. You have to understand, Sinn Féin has 14 TDs. They are a registered, recognised group in the Dáil with €1 million a year in funding. Of course, unfortunately, we don't get recognition as a group. If we had that, we would be more effective. But in my view, United Left Alliance TDs, I know how hard they work and have worked very well together as well on a lot of these issues, and as they will in regard to this household tax and the budget. But we all have a tremendous possibility now going into the next year to really put the left alternative out there in a practical way, also raising the need for the socialist and the left alternative, combining that with our campaigning activity, and certainly we can make major steps forward to building a real left alternative in the immediate period ahead.